a very good morning to you. It's Tuesday today. It's September 20th, 2022. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to the program AM Prime. Let's tell you what's happening over the next hour and a half. In the second hour, just after the news at 7, we'll be talking with Mr. Dax Driver. He's the president and the CEO of the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago. We're talking about the Energy Chamber on the future of the economy. Where's the place of energy anymore in there? We will get to him just after 7 o'clock this morning. Before that, however, we're talking with Mr. Shane Mohammed in moments from now. He's a political analyst, continuing to look at the situation involving what is taking place at the Tobago House of Assembly with the resignation of Watson Duke as deputy chair. The resignation itself has been challenged, what took place yesterday and what we look forward to going ahead. We're talking with another attorney after that, Mr. Kirk Hogan, trying to unravel the complexity of these charges against the Member of Parliament for Point de Pierre, David Lee, with the purchase and the alleged transfer of this vehicle and the costs involved. Of course, we take a look around the region. We have the Newsday question and the responses and more, including watch this with some of the final moments of the body of the late Queen Elizabeth II. So those things and more in the program. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
I wish to use this platform to categorically denounce and deny some extremely wild allegations that I have seen made by the now former Deputy Chief Secretary with regards to collecting bribes or collecting monies elsewhere. Let me indicate that I have already been in consultations with my lawyers, inclusive of a King's Counsel. Yes, we're no longer treating with Queen's Counsels, inclusive of a King's Counsel, and I intend to pursue legal action that will treat with that matter.
All right, so that was the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Farley Augustine, speaking yesterday on one of his sides to Dr. Dr. Faith V. Israel, she has been appointed as the new Deputy Chief Secretary at the Assembly. That's following the removal of Mr. Watson-Duke in that position. Well, how could things have gone so wrong so soon, so quickly in this organization that ramped to office in the Tobago House of Assembly just months ago, taking 14 of the 15 districts contested in that election? We're talking about that and other related matters this morning, again, with political analyst Dr. Shane Mohammed. Good morning. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Andy. How are you?
Well, good, thanks. So my brief here says that Mr. Augustine has sought legal redress to defend claims made by Mr. Duke regarding the alleged misappropriation of funds, and he was speaking at this press conference yesterday. The Chief Secretary confirmed that a pre-action protocol letter would be served on Mr. Duke. Let's talk about that. Where these charges about misappropriation of funds come up, and is that sort of a political fig leaf that is just being brandished about the place in the face of the collapse of this collaboration and this organization known as the group that is inside there?
I think it's nothing but propaganda. And I think it's about, at the end of the day, when you look at the philosophy of the THA, the philosophy of this current THA has been Tobago first, and putting Tobago first and giving opportunities in all forms of the word, of the context of opportunity. The first it was always about Tobagonians getting the opportunities to be able to benefit from the various sectors of governance, and therefore it's very unfounded. It is the first form of defense mechanism, and it is, in my opinion, unfortunate that Mr. Duke had to go down this route. It is a man that is scrambling for political relevance and realizing at the same time that he may have just reached the end of his political road, because he said he wants to be Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and I don't see how that is going to happen, given that he has taken his PDP and walked. If you look around, Andy, and you've been very experienced in the political arena, I can't recall either where something of this level of nonsense has ever happened.
Well, it's interesting because yesterday I had a discussion with somebody who worked with him closely in his capacity as president of the PSA, because I remember well from that experience, like a lot of people who were close to him then, he suspended a bunch of people, and he left the PSA in sort of a mess, at least from his perspective, with his leadership of that, and he's talking now about wanting to bring his politics to Trinidad, and he's making some moves and some overtures in constituencies in and around Port of Spain. What do you make of that?
Andy, that is wishful thinking and political. That is dreaming. That is someone who is not aware of the political realities that are facing the differences in the political realities between Trinidad and Tobago. And you wanting to go, okay, let me ask you this. He wants to go after certain constituencies within the Port of Spain region. The Port of Spain region has not shifted its political allegiances since 1986. What makes him think now that he's going to be able to get them to get the constituencies of that region to shift their allegiances to him? I definitely know for a fact that he made arrangements with the community leaders in Laventille West, and he went up on the hills of Laventille West with the permission of the community leaders up there. And when he got there, he started to make, he said, one of the things that he said is that why it is Adrian Leons cannot thief the money from the... Yeah, he said he would thief. Why he can't thief? Thief, everybody does thief. Thief some money and bring it and give it to the people of Laventille West so that they could get opportunities too.
You know for a fact that he's on record as having said that?
He said that on the news. That was on the news, Andy. That was carried on the news.
I missed that.
And I was like looking on the news and going, what? You know, you have to be mad. You know, what happened? He literally told Adrian, he say, everybody does thief. Why does you can't thief some money and thief the money and bring it and, you know, give the resources to the people of Laventille West. And you, Adrian Leons, you can't come up here no more. And he was forced, they were forced to cut the recording. The media was asked to leave, and he was run out of the constituency because the people of Laventille West did not agree to that, because at the end of the day, Adrian Leons
he's the MP for Laventille East Nova. Yeah.
He's giving resources to his constituency, but he ain't thieving the resources as alluded by Watson Duke. In order for people to get, you know, their benefits from social grants and the social frameworks that we have in place for them.
Right, Mr. Leons is the MP for Laventille East Nova, but that's not the big issue here.
So it would have been Laventille East Nova, not Laventille West. He would not. It was sorry.
Yeah. You say he was allowed into the communities there by the community leaders. What do you mean by community leaders? Is that the sort of the euphemism we use to talk about the gang people who control it, or the authentic community leaders?
Community leaders, Andy.
In quotes.
Yeah. So he was, you know, and he was told to never come back. He was told to never come back, and after that incident, I don't recall him having any other public meetings in and around those areas. And within the San Juan Laventille Regional Corporation, which is one of the corporations he was in, he has not had meetings in and around Port of Spain either.
Since then.
You know, since then.
All right. All right. So let's go back to Tobago now. So he has Mr. Augustine has sought legal redress to defend claims by Mr. Duke about accusations, allegations against him, Mr. Augustine, for misappropriation of funds. You think that is made up? You think he's just throwing mud where he thinks it will stick, Mr. Duke?
I think Mr. Duke is let me put it like this. The Chief Secretary is not about to destroy his political career, especially one that is on the cusp of one of the most glorious achievements by a young person in our Trinidad and Tobago political space. That's one. Two, he is neither about to cause any level of embarrassment to himself, his friends, or his family. Mr. Augustine is also a very spiritual man and a practicing Seventh-day Adventist. He observes the Sabbath. On a Sunday morning after Sabbath is over, he's normally visiting various churches in and around the entire island, bringing sermons delivering sermons and whatnot. That's all part of who he is as an individual. I go back to he's already said that the amount of funds that was left to them from the last budget, they have to work with it and give priority to certain sectors and wait until the new budget comes along and see what is provided and allocated by the Minister of Finance to the Tobago House of Assembly. So there are so many mitigating factors to this accusation by Watson Duke that makes it ludicrous and ridiculous. I will say this to you, and I'm going to put it in the form of questions. If there's anybody who has to answer questions, and I maintain my position, and Andy, I don't go about making statements of things that I am not sure about, and I was always, one of these pieces of advice I was given by by one of my very good friends in the political arena is Dr. Fuad Kanyan. He said to me, he said, Shane, write your truth, speak your truth, and you will always flourish. And I will say this, and this is something that needs to be clarified. In the run-up to the 2020 THA elections, where there was the 6-6
the ties.
tie, did Watson Duke, as political leader of the PDP, receive funds and funding from those persons, from his friends in Trinidad? And if he did, how come those funds were not trickled down into the individual campaigns that were strongholds that needed assistance? That's one. Two, did Watson Duke receive funding from his friends in Trinidad in the run-up to the 2021 THA elections? And where did that money go? Because we all know that the THA elections on the part of the PDP was one that was a ground campaign, one that they went house to house, person to person, street to street, in order to get and acquire the goodwill of the people. So the question is, where, if he did receive funding, where did that money go?
All right, so here's my question. To what extent you have any sense that the Tobago electorate has soured on the THA, on the PDP because of what has happened there?
And my answer to you is that the PDP is not the PDP did not win the THA elections. The PDP was the vehicle based on the requirement of the EBC for there to be a political party. The PDP, the people that won, the person that was responsible for the victory of the people of the PDP was the chief secretary and his team. And I pivot that against Watson Duke's defeat at the 2020 general elections, when it was his election to lose. It was him going against Ayanna Webster-Roy, and Ayanna Webster-Roy was extremely unpopular at the time. And he had the ability to swing that seat, because in my calculations as a political scientist, it was one of the seats that was going to flip. And it is directly because of Duke's utterances in the public's domain, his lack of control and his choice of words and what he said, not how he said it, that turned off the people of Tobago East and caused them to continue to vote PNM. And it is the reason, in recognizing that he did not have the ability and the capacity and the tenacity and the charisma that was needed to win the THA election, that is why the team leadership was passed to Farley Augustine, and it was Farley mania in Tobago.
So
it was not PDP mania.
So people voted more for Farley Augustine than for Watson Duke?
Correct.
So that sentiment is not changing, you're not seeing it changing right now?
No. Anywhere you walk, and if you walk in the mall, if you walk downtown Scarborough, if you go on the beaches, if you speak to the small the small businesses on and around the island, they will tell you that they are extremely pleased with Farley. And people said they voted for Farley. When I went to Tobago and I was asking persons in hushed tones, so, you're voting now. It's like, yeah, Farley all the way, Farley, Farley, Farley. It was all about Farley. It was about what he said, how he said it, his visions for Tobago, his ability to captivate the minds of Tobagonians in a realistic manner. And I will go as far as to say, in my capacity as a political scientist, analyzing what his dream is for Tobago, it is not it is not unachievable. It is not utopian. It requires dedication, commitment. It requires everybody to be all aligned to the dream of making Tobago the best little island on the planet.
You think that dream is still alive, minus Watson Duke?
Watson Duke, Andy Watson Duke did not do or did not begin to execute the responsibilities that were allocated to him as Deputy Chief Secretary between the 2021 period to now.
But he's on record as complaining about the people who've been appointed to work with him. You think that is responsible?
No, when you are Andy, when you are the leader of a ministry, when you are the leader of a division, you set the tone for how you want the direction of your division or your ministry to go, regardless of whether you get resistance. It is how you approach your staff members in order to get buy-in. And at the end of the day, I don't believe that he was given human resources that were so completely against him, because this is the same people that he would have represented as the PSA president. He is a walking oxymoron and contradiction to everything that he's saying.
All right, so the PDP is going to survive this. Farley Augustine is going to survive this.
Well, so Farley Augustine and the current administration will survive. The PDP has been taken away from them. At least one of the aspects that work in their favor is that the THA does not require anyone to belong to a political party in order to serve a term in office, especially in the administration. What I found was hilarious, and I mean, there's a video that I saw this morning, this morning I saw a video where he did go into the chamber at Shaw Park, and he walked around the entire chamber because he was still given his seat to sit next to the chief secretary. He did not sit there. He did not take up another seat. He simply walked around the square and walked out of the building. I was like, well, what is the purpose of you doing that nonsense? Right. And additionally, he's not the question of the PNM nominating him for Deputy Chief Secretary is going to raise a lot of eyebrows amongst the supporters in Tobago, because the question would be why. If it was an attempt to embarrass Mr. Watson, then I think it backfired, because whose ever idea that was made Mr. Kelvin Morris, a minority leader, look very foolish, because it made him look as though he was unaware of the standing orders and the procedures and the law, in fact, in electing
all right, that is,
a deputy chief secretary.
All right, that is something we will seek to unpack on another day, but we have to leave it there for now. Thank you very much, political scientist Dr. Shane Mohammed.
Thank you very much for having me, Andy.
You're very welcome. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we look at that issue on the other side. Kirk Hogan, another attorney, looking at the matter before the courts now. David Lee and the $1 million bail and the $1 million transfer fee for a vehicle that he bought. He says he still owns it. So whether the charges against him, those things and more up ahead. Stay with us.
Chantwell Vibes, a musical tribute to Andre Tanker, Saturday, September 24th, 2022, Central Bank Auditorium. Showtime, 7:30 p.m. Featuring Three Canal, Mavis John, Ataclan, Empress Ajay, Stacy Sobers, and panist Natasha Joseph. Tickets $300. Available at Crosby's Music Center, St. James. Extra Foods, Rima, Grand Bazaar, and Endeavour. Online at Island E-Tickets. Committee members at 678-2843 or 482-3111. Central Bank box office on the day of the event. Mart's Liquor Palace, Diego Marte Main Road, La Puerta. A musical tribute to Andre Tanker. Saturday, September 24th, 2022. Central Bank Auditorium. Showtime, 7:30 p.m.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. Moments from now, we'll be talking with attorney Kirk Hogan, trying to unravel What is this? What are these charges against Mr. David Lee, the MP, for Point Appeal with the purchase and the alleged transfer of a vehicle? Ultra vires the rules that govern those things where a member of parliament is involved. But for the moment, let's take a look. Let's begin to take a look around the region. We go to St. Lucia, where St. Mary's College there has begun an internal investigation over a suspected bullying matter which occurred there. We have a report from NBC Prime News.
St. Mary's College has vowed to look into a suspected bullying case after a video of a student had been punched and his face slapped by another classmate. In the video, which emerged on social media on Thursday, September 15, a student wearing spectacles is seen seated inside a classroom and then spits on a student. As the video continues, the student who was spat on punches and then slaps him in the face. The incident occurred in the full view of other students. Reports of bullying at St. Mary's College have reached a breaking point for the victim and also the student at the center of the matter. He later issued an apology to the school via a video recording and to his classmate affected.
I am a student from St. Mary's College who was recently captured in a viral video. I would like to apologize to the other party in the incident, my school, and to my parents for demonstrating bad reputation to myself in the reaction that I gave to the incident, as I was not raised as shown in the video.
St. Mary's College Principal Don Howell states that the apology by the student came as no surprise because, according to him, students are aware of the values instilled at the school. Howell described the incident as unfortunate. He says the entire school has expressed disappointment after what was seen.
We are disturbed. The matter is under full investigation. I don't want people to just jump to conclusions. Under full investigation. Of course, wherever there needs to be disciplinary measures, it will be imposed fully upon everyone involved.
An internal investigation is ongoing. Howell would not divulge any further details as it relates to the incident, but says the school does not tolerate any form of indiscipline from students.
We have our bullying policy, and we have made it clear to our parents, to our students, that this will not be tolerated. And if every child who made it to St. Mary's College, they have earned the right to be here, and they must be made comfortable while they are at school. And if any parent or their child seeks to make another uncomfortable, then you may have to face the consequences based on our policy.
St. Lucia National Students' Council Interim President Sienna Dalson has described the incident as disheartening and has applauded the student for issuing an apology.
We do accept, however, the apology of the young man, which came out very promptly. So it's good that his moral compass was able to bring him to take responsibility for what had happened. What we're seeing in schools is just a reflection of what's been going on in our wider society, and it's destroying the fabric of our daily lives. So we're pleading with anybody who is in a position to make a difference, to do whatever they can to help get it sorted.
In October 2019, an investigation was launched by SMC following reports of bullying after school hours. A video emerged of an encounter between two students of the institution. The alleged victim, a student of the St. Mary's College, could be seen being tormented and punches thrown at him. St. Mary's College notes that despite the incident, which recently occurred, the school continues to uplift students to rise to the occasion and excel in various subject areas and sports.
Welcome back. Well, here's the deal. The opposition MP, the MP for Point-a-Pier, David Lee, is facing 2 criminal charges, one of misbehavior in public office and the other for conspiracy to defraud. The charges were in connection with the purchase of a Mercedes-Benz costing $2.3 million and whether the tax exemptions due to him because of his status as an MP, that exemption was $1.4 million derived, may have been put to the benefit of a party financier. Investigators approached officials at the office of the DPP on Friday, and they got instructions to charge him. He is saying that he is without sin in this regard. He is saying that he still drives the Benz or owns the Benz. So what is the issue? What is behind the charges laid against him, and what are his chances? We're trying to get a sense of where we go with it, and to help us do that this morning, Attorney Kirk Hogan is our friend on matters of this sort. Good morning. Good to see you, my friend.
Pleasant good morning. Good to see you as well. And it's good to be here with your viewing audience.
Right, so what do you make of this? If these charges are laid, we won't get into the accusations about why they are laid, to what extent they are being being described as being politically motivated. But the DPP is the one who gave the instructions to charge, and he would do that based on the weight of what he has seen before him. Well, first of all, let me understand, how does a vehicle attract a tax as $1.4 million? And how does somebody benefit from that and then accused of turning around and just breaking the rules and dispensing with the vehicle inappropriately?
Right. Well, the tax structure allows for, I think, customs, and from what I've read, that vehicle would have attracted customs tax in the range of over $800,000. Then, of course, you have the usual value added. And I think the other 2 sets of taxes came out to about $600,000 or thereabouts, ballpark.
Right, so that brings us to the 1.4.
That brings us to the 1.4 roughly, right? Vehicle was valued at 2.4 million or something to that effect.
2.3.
So, yeah. 2.3, right. So in that sense, you can see one where an individual might be motivated. And this is, of course, casting no aspersions on any one particular individual, but you can see why there might be an incentive to obtain a vehicle at that value minus the taxes, right? And I mean, that's the benefit that all parliamentarians get, all MPs get. It's a benefit that many public servants have as well, that they can have the VAT removed from the purchase of a vehicle. So it comes with the office. So therefore, the chief whip would have had, the opposition chief whip would have had the benefit of that exemption. The argument is that he would have legally applied for the exemption, which he was entitled to do, and thereafter obtained the exemption when purchasing the vehicle from those taxes. However, the intention of the exemption is for the purpose of the individual use, it's for the person who's applying for the exemption's use. So if the vehicle is not for that person's use and properly intended for the use of someone else, a third party, then you have the challenge arising where you are now in the space of attempting to defraud the government and by extension the taxpayers because you have not purchased that vehicle for your own use. And that's where the challenge arises in this case.
Isn't there a time limit before which you ought not properly to dispense or dispose of the vehicle? And that is an issue in and of itself because there's some other cases in which people are pointing to the fact that has happened. Yeah, you're going back mute again. We're not hearing you. You mute again, yes.
Oh, my apologies.
Right.
It's, I think after all this time, we'd be used to this by now. So, no, but it's a 2-year time limit. So if I recall correctly, I think they're entitled to import a vehicle every 2 years. And you have a 2-year time limit within which you must not dispose of the vehicle, meaning by sale or otherwise. So in those circumstances, if you do dispose of the vehicle within that time, I think you're required to pay back the taxes. I think it's only up to half, though, if I'm not mistaken, you're only required to pay back up to half of the taxes. So in those circumstances, if you dispose of the vehicle before 2 years,
if you want to dispose of it before 2 years, but why would somebody? I mean, ordinarily speaking, on an ordinary plane, why would somebody want to acquire a vehicle like that and get rid of it under 2 years? Maybe even under 5 years.
Well,
you see, 10 years.
According to the arguments currently, when you read what he has said, what he's put out in the public forum so far, he is saying that he is legally the owner of the vehicle. Now, the state is saying that may well be so. The documentary evidence may pass muster, meaning that he would have legally applied for the exemption, he would have legally purchased the vehicle is legally registered in his name. And that is what he is saying. However, the dispute comes with possession. Because ultimately, if you are not, and you know that's a common practice in Trinidad, somebody buy a vehicle here and go and transfer it, you have 7 days to transfer it, it never gets transferred. 2 years later, people hunting down in licensing office, well, I can't find the man, the vehicle sold 2 or 3 times. That's a common situation in Trinidad. So it's not unusual to have one person being the registered owner of a vehicle, but the vehicle being in the possession of someone else.
Yeah, because a name has been,
I guess what we would call the equitable owner.
A name has been called as to whom
is in possession of the vehicle.
And that
and that person has now been implicated in the offense.
Yes.
And I understand if he hasn't been questioned already, I understand that there are moves afoot to question that individual as well regarding his relationship to the transaction. So to my mind, as I understand it, the real issue comes down to possession. Because the allegation is that the vehicle has never been in his possession, Mr. Lee's possession, at any point in time. So therefore, it really wasn't intended for his benefit and use. The political allegations, and it is sad when these things happen. The political allegations come about because 2 years ago, the debate was hot in Parliament and comments were made about the fact that the vehicle was purchased by, and no names were mentioned at the time, but the talk was thrown out in Parliament towards the opposition leader and her team that, listen, someone on your team did this particular act. If the matter was being investigated, quite frankly, it is not the best place to bring up these kinds of allegations because clearly, even if there was no political motivation, even if there is no way to avoid the specter of political allegations, if you raise the matter in Parliament and bring it up in banter, which quite frankly wasn't relevant to the debate at hand, because there was an argument about now whether there should be a cap on there should be a ceiling on these exemptions. Yes. So the question was, okay, was it a relevant point to bring up at the time? Because if the investigation was at that time afoot, because this occurred in 2019, then the question is, allow the investigation to take its course and find its way into the system. Either it did or it didn't. If it didn't, you're free to use it as a political football if you choose to. If it does find its way into the system, you have now put the investigation at risk of being called a politically motivated, and this is exactly what's happening. I can't say which one came first, whether the car came before the horse or vice versa in this situation, but I can say is that in 2020, that was the debate. It was raised again by Coleman, but in budget debate.
I want to say, I want to put whatever reputation I may have out there to say that I can't see how it could be deemed to be politically motivated when the DPP is the person who looks over these things, looks over these files, and say, we have a case here, charge him. I don't see the DPP being involved in politically inspired decisions.
I would want to split hairs on that point, simply because the allegation may not be that there may not be an offense at the core of the issue. There may or may not be an offense. The allegation is that the prosecution of the individual is politically motivated, meaning that it is being driven by political forces. That is the argument from the opposition side. So if there is an offense, it's being looked into only because it was a political.
Yeah, but how is it possible to separate the actual assessment of the case against him, the alleged case against him, and the charges which the DPP has said go ahead and proffer these charges? That is there not a means by which the DPP would satisfy himself that these charges are baseless and say, well, they can't go forward? And if he decides that to go, go ahead.
Notice though, the allegations made by the opposition are that the police are somehow involved in carrying out this political mandate. Now, there's no allegation thus far that the DPP is involved.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So the charges could not be proffered absent the DPP's review of the file and his...
I agree. Yeah. If you run it up the food chain, the process would have been, okay, the information comes to hand that this act has occurred. The police officers responsible, the FIB unit, they take up the mantle to investigate the allegation. They conduct inquiries, and they've been conducting inquiries for some time. They've interviewed him in August and so forth, it seems. And then they've determined, okay, there is enough evidence to take it up the food chain, which is normally to their superiors within the division.
Right.
Thereafter, once the superiors within the division have determined, okay, yes, we agree, put together the file, it is then submitted to the DPP for an opinion. And the DPP would then determine, yes, there is sufficient evidence to lay a charge on that. So it is generally an independent operation.
Precisely. And so there are a lot of people in the food chain, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
so that somebody, so a lot of people have to be now considered to be
politically
participants in this political conspiracy then.
And it's a dangerous and spurious allegation to make, because ultimately, if you intend to form the next government, the challenge, of course, becomes you now have to work with these people, because these persons are persons in the public sector, right? These are public officers. You now find yourself having to work with these persons if you come into office. And given the fact that the acting commissioner is one of the contenders for the role of commissioner of police, it is clear that if he becomes commissioner of police, you're going to have a difficult relationship. It is also clear that if he doesn't become commissioner of police under a new regime headed by the UNC, let's say, then he is going to raise the specter of political interference because he was victimized. So it's not a win-win situation at all. It's a very difficult situation. And when you make those general allegations without more, you put public officers at risk.
Probably it's lose-lose.
Well, ultimately, because quite frankly, I don't see anyone in these circumstances benefiting from this entire transaction and the way it is currently being handled.
Right, and what do you make of the fact that Mr. Lee is saying, he's on record here saying at one of the headlines in the paper in the Newsday on September 18th, I own the Benz. So if he owns it, how was that not established? And if he owns it, whoever is driving it, whether it's this Mr. Leong Poi or what have you, what's the issue then? If he
no,
can
legally
show
speaking,
he owns it,
if he has all the paperwork intact, he applied for the exemption and he has not transferred the vehicle. Legally speaking, the vehicle is registered to him and he owns it, which takes me back to the point I was making earlier. We are accustomed to people buying vehicles and not transferring them.
Yes.
But ultimately, someone may purchase a vehicle from another party, not transfer the vehicle within the legal time limit, which is usually the 7 days. And then, as I said, 2 years later, they're ready to sell the vehicle, or the vehicle has already been sold to a second or third owner, and they're trying to chase down the registered owner. So it is not unusual to have the registered legal owner separate and apart from the person who has possession of the vehicle. And that's the allegation in this case. He is saying that he's the registered legal owner. Now, if you look at the statement he made carefully, nowhere does he actually mention that he has possession of the vehicle. He talks about all his paperwork in order, the exemption was legally applied for, everything is in order. But he never says that he has possession of the vehicle, which to my mind is the proof in the pudding. Because you have to establish that you have possession and it was used for your benefit, which is what the allegation is, that you didn't have possession and it was not being used for your benefit. It was in fact bought for the purpose of giving it to someone else as a benefit to them. And this person is alleged to be a UNC financer. So once again, the allegation really surrounds the possession of the vehicle. So while you may have legally purchased the vehicle, that person really is the one behind the scenes controlling the strings.
Yeah, because there has to be something that ties the person whose name has been given as being in possession of the vehicle for
yes.
the documents to have come forward.
From all allegations, yes. And from all allegations, it seems to be that person would have been using the vehicle for their own personal use. So I get the impression that the investigation would have unearthed the fact that this person was driving that vehicle, and they've always had that vehicle since it's been brought into the country, and was never a vehicle used by Mr. Lee. I think in the budget debate, I can't remember, even mentioned the fact that the vehicle was never was never used to bring him to Parliament. I'm not sure how relevant that may be in the circumstance, but it's an anecdotal point.
Yeah, and we don't have a lot of time in this segment, but is there any resemblance from this matter to the one involving the former Attorney General, which on which he was brought up for similar kind of thing, sort of premature transfer of the vehicle that he bought, but the files came up short in terms of their justiciability, as you would say.
So you have to forgive me, I'm having some difficulty hearing or getting the audio on this end.
Yeah, I'm saying the issue that was raised about the former Attorney General with a vehicle as well, but that the information did not lead to any charges against him. So he is in the clear, but Mr. Lee is facing these charges now. What's the difference?
Right. Well, I think the challenge is the allegation and the fact pattern between the two are different, all right? I don't know all the details with respect to what transpired with the Attorney General. I knew what was in the public domain, much like anyone else. And well, same with this matter. But I think because this one, I think the values involved are some of the highest values we would have seen. And it seems on the face of it, to be a more blatant effort to avoid or circumvent the tax by a third party. I think that is what makes it a little more obvious to the public in that sense. It is less of a nuanced situation.
All right, take a guess as to when we shall have come to on the other side of this, such that either Mr. Lee walks or he faces these charges negatively. How long do you think we in with this?
Quite frankly, given our current state of affairs in our justice system, this could drag out for quite a while. So we're looking at a number of years in the system before this matter really goes anywhere. We're likely to have a change of government or an election, either one, restoring the current party or changing the current party before we see that matter come into fruition, right? Unless one party walks away from it, either he takes a position and pleads guilty or the state decides there is insufficient evidence after certain inquiries, then this matter is going to last quite some time. And I mean, we've seen these matters stretch out over a number of years.
And
the average case sometimes during the course of an inquiry can run anywhere from a year to 5 years. During the course of a preliminary inquiry.
And Mr. Lee, who is somebody who I like and I admire, he is likely to run again and win in point of peer and be in the parliament when that time comes. All right.
I didn't hear your last comment,
I'm saying Mr. Lee, who is somebody I like and admire as a politician, how he addresses issues, he's likely to run again in point of peer and win the seat and continue.
I think in the interim, yes. Now, as I said, in general public life, it is expected that when these scandals arise, you step aside and you make way for those who have less contentious issues afoot in order to make way for the party to progress. However, it is unlikely that he would do such a thing, partly because it's quite favorable in his constituency. He has favorable ratings in his constituency, so it's likely that he will run again. Even in these current circumstances, it also seems likely that he will win. And I think these kinds of allegations are likely to reinforce his victory in his constituency.
But to make the point that he's not compromised at all. But Kirk Hogan, thank you very much for talking with us.
Always a pleasure.
All right, we will take a break. We have news at the top of the hour. Well, that's a minute or so gone already. And on the other side of that, Dr. Dax Driver, the President and CEO of the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago. We're talking about the future of energy and its place in the economy in Trinidad and Tobago. As we go forward, stay with us.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise St. Clair. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Former General Secretary of PSA weighs in on Duke's disposition. Political analyst believes that Watson Duke and Farley Augustine are well aware of legalities of resignations. Double murder in Belmont. And internationally, Hurricane Fiona creates havoc in Dominican Republic. Now for the details. Former General Secretary of the PSA, Nixon Callender, says he's not surprised about the rift between the PDP leader and the THA Chief Secretary. Speaking on WESN's AM Prime, he gave his account of the personality of Mr. Duke, whom he worked closely with over a period of time.
What we are seeing now of him is nothing different to his whole character degenerating into something that persons can see as questionable. And we have seen the individual of Watson Duke morphed into something that no young aspiring person should want to aspire to be anything like the individual. I can safely say that.
Political analyst Dr. Sheikh Mohammed says there are questions which surround the legalities in which Watson Duke resigned his position as Deputy Chief Secretary of the THA. He was speaking on WESN's Talking Point on Monday.
I'm not going to be doubtful to the point where they don't know what they're doing. That's not Farley Augustine and this current THA.
Right.
And especially when they're being guided by senior politicians who've been in the THA before and who know the THA act like the back of their hand. So I will say to you all, let not our hearts be troubled with regard to those.
Moving on now, 2 men are dead following a midday shooting in Belmont on Monday. Reports say the incident occurred at St. Francois Valley Road. 3 suspects allegedly exited a silver vehicle clad in blue coveralls and fired shots in the men's direction. They escaped in the waiting car. The men were rushed to the Port of Spain General Hospital, where they are said to have succumbed to their injuries. In international news now, Hurricane Fiona roared over the Dominican Republic on Monday after knocking out power across all of Puerto Rico, causing damage. The governor described the damage as catastrophic. Many people were left without water service. No deaths had been reported, but authorities in the U.S. territory said it was too early to know the full scope of damage from an expansive storm that was still forecast to unleash torrential rain across Puerto Rico. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Sinclair. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to the program. With the next budget set for presentation on September 26th, we look at the energy sector. The forthcoming budget presentation will be discussed in that context. Since the energy industry is one of the most, if not the most important sectors in the economy, the question is, what would the energy sector and its major players want to see in the budget? What would be the future of energy going forward? To help us understand that and to get some answers as to what is in his mind and the minds of the people for whom he works, the President and the CEO of the Energy Chamber in Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Thackeray Daxdriver. Good morning, good to see you.
Good morning, how are you, Andy?
Very good, thanks. So let's start talking. What is your, could we call it a shopping list, or do you have to prepare that? What's in your mind as to what should come down the pike regarding energy going forward?
Well, we have a very short shopping list for the budget, and it's not really a shopping list. What we're looking for is some decisions and some definite action around the fiscal terms. So we're looking to reform this is the taxation and the royalties for the upstream oil and gas industry. This is something which has been promised. It was outlined in last year's national budget, and we were told that there was going to be some decisions taken by the end of Q1 2022. And here we are going into the budget again, and there's actually been no decisions taken. So we are really looking for some clear decisions to help stimulate investment into upstream oil and gas production to deal with this very issue which the Prime Minister had talked about so clearly when he came back from Europe a couple of weeks ago.
You have any idea or any feedback from whatever the authorities are, the Ministry of Finance or wherever, as to why what was outlined in the last budget didn't materialize?
Well, we've had, obviously we've had ongoing discussions with the Ministry of Energy in particular. We we submitted a very detailed set of proposals back in 2021. We've resubmitted those again and just have asked that this could be looked at. And these are the sort of things that we're looking to change. What we're really trying to ensure is that we have a system where oil and gas companies can make investments and be secure in the knowledge that those investments could be profitable, even if prices drop significantly. So the current system sort of works okay when prices are at these high levels, but people don't make investments based upon today's prices. They make investments based upon how they project prices will look in the future. So if they can't make money at $50 a barrel, they won't make the investments. So it's really to have a system where people will be willing to invest in projecting not just current high prices, but future lower prices as well.
Are there reasons why you all would say, well, okay, the situation is such that what was promised, if you want to call it that, didn't materialize or hasn't materialized? Because we're not necessarily talking about this year alone. Sometimes these things go back years. So from what you all see, is it understandable that the projections made were not fulfilled?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's completely understandable why the Ministry of Finance is worried about changing oil and gas taxation. Oil and gas taxation is a very, very important source of revenue for the Ministry of Finance. So they want to be sure that there's a system in place where they will be able to collect the taxes and the royalties which are due to the government on this resource belonging to the people. So that of course we understand why the Ministry of Finance is hesitant to change the system. But look, gas production is down 25% in the last decade. Oil production is also down a similar level as well. We need to change what we're doing. Otherwise, we're going to end up with stranded assets, stranded resources, molecules of oil and gas left in the ground in the future, while the world is moving away, particularly from oil. So I think there's a real urgency to deal with the oil issues. Gas is incredibly important because we have so much of the economy reliant upon gas. So if we're not producing gas upstream, that means plant closures in Point Lisas, which has a huge impact on many jobs and many households.
To what extent we have a couple, at least, of these hard and being in a rock and a hard place choices to make with the government as well as the companies, because as you say, so that a lot of the revenue comes from this sector and the government doesn't want to cut itself short. But at the same time, you're saying that to create an environment for even further investments, there has to be some downward adjustment in what the take is of the top, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly the issue, Andy. I mean, these are hard choices, but I think what really, as you say, off the top, this is where the challenge comes when there's taxation which takes from the revenue side of the business, not from the profit side of the business. Now, understandably, governments would want to have that in place with royalties, but you've got to have a royalty system, and it's the same with the supplemental petroleum tax, which we've often spoken about on oil, which essentially acts like a royalty. So that's revenue. That's tax based upon the revenue of the company, not on the profits of the company. So when you have systems like that, it becomes very challenging. You need to structure it in such a way that is variable, so that if there's a small gas field which is not very profitable, the amount of royalty can be less than if it's a large gas field which is hugely profitable, and it can sustain itself with a high royalty rate. Same goes with SPT. SPT is a tax off the top. It kicks in when oil prices are $50 a barrel. So suddenly, when prices go from $49 to $50 a barrel, there's this huge additional take from the government off the top. That needs to be amended. I mean, it doesn't work. The economics do not work for oil production in the country with that sort of system, which is why we're seeing our oil production decline over time.
What should we make of the continued forays in other countries with the high representatives of these major multinational corporations in energy. The Prime Minister has been making, continues to make go on those kinds of missions. One, my own sort of casual look at it is that very often he goes on these things with maybe a minister or two, or the last one or two, he was going alone. To what extent, people in the energy sector believe that he should have backup from other people? If you're talking with Shell or whoever else, wherever in Europe and in the United Kingdom, he seems to be doing these things on his own. Is that the best way to go about trying to win contracts for Trinidad and Tobago, you think?
Well, I think it's excellent that the Prime Minister has developed that very close relationship with the senior leadership of these major multinationals, and I think that's a good thing to him to do. Sometimes it's very useful to meet people outside Trinidad, to go to headquarters and meet people there, and you can have different types of conversations sometimes. So that's something which I think we fully support, and I think that that's a good process. And he goes with the Minister of Energy. And I think that those are important. That's not where the decisions are taken. The decisions are taken back in Trinidad at the level of cabinet. But it's an information gathering, it's an understanding, it's a getting the details, and I think those are very useful things to be doing. Obviously, there are things which they will be discussing there, which I'm not privy to, because they're commercially very, very confidential, particularly around the restructuring of Atlantic, which we know the discussions there are ongoing, and are very complicated. These are complex things which have to be sorted out, we're just hoping we'll see the results of that soon. That's not a national budget issue. I think the budget issues are things where we're dealing with the taxation issues and expenditure issues. Those contracts around Atlantic in particular, and the gas contracts between the upstream producers and NGC are things which are very important to negotiate. They're a little separate from the national budget.
So at this point, what is in your docket in terms of some of the trips that have been undertaken, the missions that he's gone on thus far? What is the playback for you all in the industry as to what these discussions even have yielded or have promised?
Well, I think that you're seeing the outcome of those, and clearly there was a lot of I think there was some additional understanding from the Prime Minister when he came back from this most recent trip. If you listen to his statements, I think it was great that he went to see Proman as well. One of our major downstream producers, based in Trinidad. Trinidad has been their major manufacturing center for methanol and ammonia and some of the other products as well. So I think that's good, because we need to be talking to these companies, understanding their strategy if we're to position the country right in those discussions.
Yeah. Let's talk about the situation regarding Guyana. What can we expect from what is happening there in terms of this bright new future that we're seeing there, and to the extent to which we will get in on that in any kind of collaborative way?
Yeah, so I mean, I think Guyana is this amazing success story that they have had in their upstream oil production. They've found just these huge reserves, and they're producing them very quickly. So they've really developed a system to bring in. Exxon has come in and they're with their partners, and they're developing these massive fields very fast. That's creating a lot of business opportunities as that work happens. It's also creating a lot of revenue for the government of Guyana. So government of Guyana is taking a clear decision to invest that in infrastructure. So there's a lot of construction activity going on in Guyana, roads and bridges, etc. Those things all create opportunities for Trinidad and Tobago based service companies and contractors. And we've seen many of our members go across to Guyana, set up business, and a lot of Trinidadians going across there to work. So obviously it creates a lot of opportunity. I think that's all good. We need to be getting our service company members, service companies from Trinidad and Tobago, many of whom are members of the chamber, but get them into Guyana. There's opportunities coming up in Suriname as well, and just have those companies working there and creating economic opportunity. when we're talking about export diversification, this is part of export diversification. We are diversifying our exports away just from the commodities which we've traditionally exported to now exporting services. So that's all good.
So it's happening in the best way that is possible under the circumstances.
Well, I think things can always, you can always be better. I think that there are some issues there around the ease of doing business, about moving people and equipment into and out of Guyana and Suriname. And those are things which we are working on at a national level here in Trinidad and with CARICOM. The easier we make it to move people and equipment around the region, the better is that is for everybody. So there's things which need to change around how Caribbean vocational qualifications are recognized with the skill certificate. There's things we need to do here with making it easy to move equipment in and out of Guyana from Trinidad. So those ease of doing business issues are very much to the forefront. So no, I mean it could be better, but there are opportunities which people are taking.
So we talk a lot about, other people talk a lot about the ease of doing business in and with Trinidad and Tobago. Is it to the same extent on those other sides? To what extent is the ease of doing business in and with Guyana or in and with Suriname comparable with the complaints that we make about ourselves?
Well, I mean, ease of doing business is an issue, I think, across most of the Caribbean. If you look at where the Caribbean countries rank, in the global ease of doing business rankings, none of us do particularly well. Some countries in the Eastern Caribbean have made some improvements in the last few years. But there's work to do everywhere on those ease of doing business issues. That's something which I think that the region needs to focus on and work on. We need to make it easy for people and capital and equipment to move around the Caribbean.
What about the huge promises that continue to lie, waiting for real uptake, if you like, with Venezuela? All the discussions we've had, all the proposed programs and projects with exploitation of these massive fields and so on. Where is that as we speak in September 2022?
Well, I mean, the opportunities are enormous. I think this is an important part of the future for Trinidad and Tobago to become, a processing hub for Venezuelan gas in particular. It is caught up with global geopolitics and sanctions. We know that the Trinidad government has been working very hard on that issue. Been repeated trips to Washington, real efforts to advocate for change with the U.S. on that. But it's a long process. But I think that the opportunities are there. We just need to sort of bide our time and stick with it. I think it's good that the diplomatic effort has been led by Trinidad and Tobago, but we've seen other Caribbean countries play their part as well. So we've seen the president of Guyana talking about that issue as well, publicly in Washington, which I think that's excellent. So I think that we just need to keep sticking at those things. The opportunities are there. There's huge resources, gas resources, untapped in Venezuela, with no real prospect of them being tapped. With capital going into Venezuela to putting into an LNG facility in Venezuela. So the best way to get those resources out are through the Trinidad infrastructure. As we all know, there's this massive global demand for natural gas at the moment, particularly in Europe, as they're trying to replace Russian pipeline gas. So there's a big demand for LNG going into Europe. We have a mothballed LNG facility here in Trinidad. Massive gas resources available just across the maritime boundary in Venezuela. So the ingredients are there. We have to find a way to sort of combine them together, to the benefit of Trinidad and Tobago as a processing hub, and hopefully it's something which will be able to help the process of change in Venezuela as well.
To the ordinary person looking on, people have you think are justified in thinking that whatever it is, the derivatives, whatever it is, the consequences of the discussion, that it is taking too long, it has been taking too long for people to see fruit on the tree, as it were?
Are you talking here about within Trinidad and Tobago or with Venezuela?
With Venezuela, what the ambition?
Well, I think, yeah, you've got to put it into an extremely difficult context of Venezuela's politics. It has been very complicated, very challenging. And then, within a regional context of the U.S. taking a position, putting in sanctions, and U.S. domestic politics also, I think, playing a big role in the U.S.'s response to Venezuela. So I think those things, which are not things which I'm really qualified to talk about, but I think you need to put everything into that context. But let's hope that things will that there's a new opportunity, and one upside from the terrible situation which we've seen in Europe, in Ukraine, might be that it creates a new opportunity for Venezuelan gas. I would point out that one interesting aspect of all of that is that there's Venezuelan gas from untapped offshore fields. Now, this is all going to take a while to develop. This is not things happening within a year. These are years off. It takes a good 4 or 5 years to develop an offshore gas field. There's also onshore gas in Venezuela at the moment, which is being flared. So this is natural gas which is produced from their oil fields, which at the moment they have no way of utilizing. And so it's simply flared. So from a global climate change point of view, if we could capture that gas and bring it by pipeline to Trinidad, that would be a real win for the world in terms of climate change as well.
All right, so let's go out in the same manner as we came in. What would you be looking to see? What would you like to see or hear whenever the Minister of Finance speaks?
Yeah. I mean, it's very simple. Just a follow through on some of the changes to the fiscal terms for upstream oil and gas. And we're looking particularly at the supplemental petroleum tax on the oil side and royalties on the gas side. That's what we're looking for.
All right. Thank you very much. Well said, sir. Dr. Thackeray Driver, President and CEO of the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago. Good to see you. You look well.
Thank you. And you as well.
All right. All right. Before we go, let's ask you to watch this. This is, part of the royal funeral that has been taking place over the last couple of days. Yesterday was the big day, as the body and the cortege. With that, the body of Queen Elizabeth II making its way from Westminster Abbey to its final resting spot at the St. George's Chapel. We could also tell you what the question is in the Newsday poll. We don't have the responses, but the question is, what do you think the public falling out between Watson Duke and Farley Augustine, whether you think that has damaged the PDP's credibility If so, why? If not, why not? We don't have the responses, but at least it's something you could ponder on. What are your views on that? But that's our broadcast for this morning. We want to thank you for watching. We want to thank our guests. We tell you can get in touch with us here at AM Prime at WESNCC. You can check us out on all the social media platforms, and you could send your emails to amprime@wesncc.com. In half an hour or so, news at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Messrs. Shah and Small. But for now, that's it for this program. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.